Hey everybody, it's Sarah and it's Spirit of Saturday, and today we're talking about relapse. And lucky for you, my whole idea slash conception slash perception perspective on relapse is fairly short and sweet and to the point, so you won't have to listen to me talk for 14 minutes and 41 seconds this time around. Relapse. I view it as pretty much a necessary evil in recovery. That's not to say that I've never seen anybody recover without relapsing. I have, like 2 or 3 people, but for the most part, relapse is an inevitable part of recovery, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's an inconvenient thing, and it's rather unfortunate for those of us that have to endure it, but it's part of the process. And that's really what the whole thing comes down to, is that recovery from an eating disorder is a process. It's not an event, it's a process, and it's ongoing, and it's a huge significant part of your life's journey for quite a substantial amount of time. And I know that if you have an eating disorder and you experience an eating disorder firsthand, you're probably a lot more in tune with that message, and that message of recovery being a process rather than an event is probably geared more towards family and friends who don't necessarily experience eating disorder firsthand and are kind of under that illusion of, oh, I'll send you off to treatment somewhere for 3 months and you'll be cured. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. It'd be nice, but it doesn't. And I think that when you approach recovery, and when you approach treatment, and when you approach regaining your life back, I think it's really important not to expect to relapse, because that's kind of like setting yourself up for failure, but to be willing to forgive relapse. And relapse is something that's sort of on a continuum, and here's your slips, which is like missing a couple of exchanges, or not meeting your calorie count, or not compensating adequately to your lapses, which is like skipping meals, or binging, purging. And then you have your relapses, which is where you're so ingrained that an intervention needs to be staged, almost, or where you need to get help in order to get out of the position that you put yourself in. Not intentionally, of course, but you're in a position where you can't do anything about it anymore. And I don't know, the way that I think is most beneficial to approach relapse is that it's not okay. No relapse, no lapse, no slip is okay, but they're all forgivable. And I think that it's really, really important that we remember that, because it can be very, very difficult to forgive yourself for quote-unquote making mistakes, or for seemingly making the same mistake over and over again. And I think that's what a lot of people get really, really caught up in, is that they are absolutely convinced that every time they relapse, they're making the same mistake over and over and over again. And they feel ungrateful, and they feel inadequate, I guess is the best way to put it. And the way that I like to look at it is that, yes, you're falling into the same behaviors again, but as long as you're falling into the same behaviors for a different reason, then that's an opportunity to learn, rather than an opportunity to berate and totally demolish your self-esteem. In that regard, that's how I view it as necessary, because you don't have an eating disorder for just one problem. You often have an eating disorder for a whole slew of problems, and they don't all get fixed at once. Back to that whole eating disorder recovery is a process, not an event thing. And provided that you don't relapse for the same reason more than once, then you're learning and you're moving forward. And to be honest, I can't tell you how many times I relapsed. Over 25. It's pretty crazy. And it's something that, yeah, I struggle with, and I may struggle with it for my whole life, but I don't feel like I'm failing, because every single time I learn something new, and I learn something new about myself, and I learn something new about how to manage life, and I learn something new about how to live life. And, you know, that's opportunity, that's not failure. And I guess that's just how I view it, is that as long as you're not relapsing for the same reason more than once, then you're doing fine. And that relapse is just kind of a bump in the road. And, you know, yeah, we want to minimize the bumps, but getting rid of them altogether kind of doesn't give you the same appreciation for life. So yeah, I guess that's what my whole thing is just learn from it. Realize that you are on a continuum. You start to get to the point where you're really, really slipping and really, really out of control. You know, reinstate that accountability, reinstate those goals, and really take into account what you want and what you need, and just be forgiving. You know, there's a healthy discipline is great. And yeah, there's a phrase in this Desperado, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, but it says, beyond a healthy discipline, be forgiving of yourself. And I think that that's really, really important, because there's no reason to berate yourself. There's no reason to, like, tear down your self-esteem. There's enough out there in the world that'll do that for you. And as long as you're accountable, as long as you're moving in the right direction in general, then making mistakes is definitely forgivable. And making mistakes and learning from them as an opportunity is admirable. So as long as you're doing that, then you're doing better than anyone can ever ask of you. So that's my whole thing on relapse, and I hope that maybe it's kind of interesting, or that you can get something from it that helps for you, or that works for you. And I didn't get to this place in this position on relapse like instantly. It took me like 4 or 5 years. I get that. So just remember, it's a process, not an event. And, you know, be prepared for your perspectives on certain things in the eating disorder world to change and to evolve, and hopefully relapse is one of them, and that you eventually find it in yourself to forgive yourself for relapsing, because it's an expression of weakness, but, you know, knowing that and expressing that and really turning that into something positive is, you know, a demonstration of strength beyond any weakness that anybody can ever label you with. So yeah, that's it. Take care, have a good week, and I will see you next week.